I just finished Dark Tower 4 Wizard and Glass, maybe the most controversial book in the series. In case you don't know, you probably do, but Dark Tower is a 7 book series plus a novella and a short story. It's Stephen King's longest series and also arguably his most acclaimed work. At least his fans are very intense about it. Dark Tower people really like the Dark Tower. I've always known in the back of my head I had to read the series one day, but I was kind of in denial that I'd actually do it. And yet here we are. I just finished book 4, and it's maybe the most controversial book in the series because it is almost entirely flashback. Like 90% of the book, 80% of the book, whatever, is a giant flashback that only has Roland and none of the other characters that we've gotten to know throughout the series. It's made even more extreme by the fact that, like, the end of book 3 really is when the fellowship has fully come together. Roland, Susanna, Eddie, and Jake, and Oi, of course, can't forget Oi, have all really united as a team. Roland has accepted their love and their friendship. The group dynamic has kind of evened out. Eddie and Susanna no longer fear Roland. They're able to push back. Roland and Jake's father-son dynamic has become healthy and strong. They love each other. They trust each other. And then boom, flashback for an entire book almost, right? And so that's a controversial idea, and I thought I was going to be pissed because I'm that guy. Like, I have a hard time with flashbacks. I just want to continue on the storyline I'm already on. I hate it when fantasy books do the thing where every time something good's about to happen, you switch to another character and you don't get to find out, like, that cliffhanger every chapter. I can't stand that crap. So I thought I might hate this book, but I loved it. It's probably my favorite book in the series so far. Up until here, out of the first 3, the second book was definitely my favorite, but the 4th book might beat it. So let's get into it. At the start of the book, you got the gang versus Blaine in the riddle battle. I was skeptical, as I'm sure many people probably were going into that section, very skeptical that Stephen King could pull off any kind of satisfying resolution to that. It just seemed so goofy. But I'll admit, I was on the edge of my seat as they were throwing riddle after riddle after riddle. I'm snapping next to the phone. Sorry if that's too loud. Bad habit. Riddle after riddle at the train, and the train is answering each riddle instantly. No hesitation, not phased. The best riddles in the world. Roland's thinking of the world championship riddles from back in Gilead. None of it matters. The train is instantly responding. All the correct answers. And it's not until Eddie uses the joking bullshit riddles that he was using with Roland that Roland legitimately got angry at him about. Those are the riddles that Blaine ends up getting stuck on because they involve humor and irony. They're human, and Blaine, as a robot, is not able to logically compute them. And even though the riddles are kind of unfair in a certain sense, they fit the game that Blaine has set, and the group is able to win the battle and basically short-circuit Blaine's existence. So I was actually impressed he made it work. You know, there's got to be something with, like, the riddles, something about the power of love or humanity, but I'll admit that the way he set it up with Eddie's stupid riddles in book 3 and then brings it back as the thing that pissed off Roland becomes the thing Roland needs to save him, because Roland doesn't have that in him. He needs Eddie, right? It's a great turning, kind of inverting that thing where the thing Roland was frustrated with is actually the thing he needed to accept. Continuing Roland's journey of sort of learning to trust the people around him, which is like the major theme throughout the Dark Tower, is Roland not being able to trust anybody and then having this quartet that he must trust and work with. But yeah, then we go back in the past for the rest of the book, and it's, except for the very end where you go back to the present day for a few chapters, and maybe I took too long getting to this part, but yeah, it's just so good. It's so good. It's the story of Roland as a 14-year-old falling in love for the first time with Susan of Magus, who, of course, has already been, in terrible old world fashion, has already been pledged, or whatever the word is, committed to a arranged, not even marriage, whatever, just to have sex with this old mayor and carry his child, because her family, her aunt, is going to get a bunch of money if she does so. And so Susan's trapped in this terrible, by modern standards, just obviously abusive situation, with no consent, no ability to make her own decisions in the matter, and she's trying to be a good girl in this world she's been raised in, where she's been taught this is the way it has to go. Her dad mysteriously died a few years ago, so she can't go to him for advice, even though she thinks he might not have been happy about all this. He might have had different ideas. He might have even said not to do it, but she can't be sure, and she has to listen to her aunt. So that whole dynamic with Susan's character, but then meeting Roland and Roland falling in love with her, it's just like it's so well done, and the passion of young love and the way that Roland and Susan are just so infatuated with each other and learning what it is to love. Of course, we're going to get into spoilers. I'm assuming y'all already read the book if you're watching this. As it goes on, eventually Roland and Susan do get together and make love, and I just the scene where they make love for the first time is just such a good example of how Stephen King is so good at expressing emotional love through physical intimacy. Like, the scene where they both lose their virginity with each other is like so beautiful and so touching and wholesome, and there's 0% of any kind of creepiness or horniness in the way it's written. It's just so well done, which is really important because that's obviously a big thing with a lot of these books. Like, if it's creepy, if the author just feels like they're making it weird, then it ruins the whole thing. So Stephen King is so good at that. And in general, the romance in the book is really well written. I don't know, at least to me, I'm not a romance expert with literature, but it just felt like really well done, and it was really a different side of King that you don't get to see that often. Then there's everyone else in the story, because the thing about this book is that it's not just about Roland and Susan. The first half of the flashback story is largely centered on them, but as it gets into more of the conflict beyond, like, the initial conflict is Susan versus Roland. Will they, won't they, right? Like, are they going to fall in love, or is Susan going to reject him? But then once that's happened, the second half of the book becomes much more about what Stephen King always does, which is he blows up the whole world, or the town that whatever town the story's happening in is probably going to blow up at the end. Ever since Carrie, that's been the case, and definitely the case here. Maybe not a literal. Well, there's some literal explosions, but basically, Magus is falling apart. The Reaping Day holiday, by the time it happens, no one's going to be celebrating, and Susan's not around in the present day. Roland is with the quartet. He does not have Susan with him, so something is going to happen to her that's bad. And so you've got the suspense of building up to that. But what's so good about it is how every character is so distinct and has their own motivations. This is the other Stephen King thing, is when he has a village, when he has a whole town in the story, everyone gets their due. It doesn't feel like everyone exists in relation to the main character. It feels like everyone has their own motivations, and this is such a good example of that. It's not good versus evil. It's not Roland versus the good man coming from the distance. It's not Roland versus Jonas. It's not Susan versus anyone in particular. Maybe Rhea the witch is kind of the bad person behind the scenes orchestrating. You get that idea. She may be hypnotizing even more people than you realize. Like, the mayor gets a blank look when he assaults Susan. Maybe that's because he's under hypnosis. Like, there's lots of hints that the witch has actually been coordinating more of the stuff than you realize. It's not explicitly said, but it's sort of implied through characters having these blank looks at certain points. And with that said, every character has their own motivations, right? Like, Jonas's motivations are super different from Mayor Thorin, from Farson, from the good man. Farson is the good man. From Sheriff, whatever the sheriff's name is. And then obviously Roland and Susan, but also, Cuthbert and Ellen have their motivations as well. Cuthbert is jealous of Roland. He's jealous. He kind of is attracted to Susan, and he's got a little bit of that in him. And he has to struggle with that at the same time as he's also legitimately worried that Roland is losing track of their actual mission because he's distracted by falling in love. Like, that whole dynamic is really cool. Someone was kind of half joking saying that whole plot line with Cuthbert and Roland, I think it's the 5th chapter that focuses on that. It works if you imagine Cuthbert's actually gay and has feelings for Roland. I don't think that's how it's written. I think it's pretty clear Cuthbert is jealous because he's got feelings for Susan. But it's kind of funny. It would almost work the same way if Cuthbert was young and discovering his sexuality and, like, actually liked Roland. It kind of works that way, which is funny. But definitely, I don't think that's the intention. I'm pretty sure Cuthbert is intended to be jealous because he likes Susan. Anyway, even, like, Olive Thorin, right, the mayor's wife who ends up defecting and trying to help Susan in the end. Every character has their own motivations. There's so many characters, and all of it ties into the greater journey, which really brings us to the punchline of this story. The Dark Tower, the origin of Roland's quest, is revealed. And it's so awesome. You find out that the Dark Tower is seen as a religious thing that maybe isn't literally true, but people kind of believe in it in this world. But Roland discovers it is literally real. So I gotta, pardon me for being gross. Um, he realizes it's literally real, and he realizes he's going to sacrifice anything and everything he has to sacrifice to get to it and to fix it, because if the Dark Tower crumbles, so too does all of reality, as the beams all connect at the tower. So that origin, I don't know, by the time you get there, it's so powerful because it's justified by the stories that led up to it. You've seen Roland betray Jake. You've seen Roland fail to protect Susan, or arguably even willingly sacrificing her, depending on how you read that. You know that he moves on from his colleagues Cuthbert and Elen. We don't really get the full details of how their lives played out after the story in Wizard and Glass, at least not yet. Maybe we'll find out more in future books, not sure. But you've seen all these things. He's lost everyone. He even, at the end of the book, the big reveal, he shot his own mother because he was tricked by the witch. And maybe did he have a role in his dad dying? And he also killed Court in the test of manhood, right? Like, everyone around him has died over and over and over and over. And so it all comes together in that vision of the Dark Tower and that realization that he's going to be on this journey, which by the end of the book, you can just feel the tension of Roland has lost everything, and many of those things are because he sacrificed them. Is he going to have to do that again? Can the Quartet stand together this time? Who's going to get sacrificed? Who's going to get lost? How is this, this loop of befriending and trusting people only to sacrifice them and let them down? Where does it end? At the Dark Tower? I don't know. I'm excited to keep reading, though. I'm going to start the 5th book soon. Probably, I'm going to maybe read like one other short one before I start the 5th one, just to give myself a little break. So I'll keep posting as I go through the series. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. What did I get wrong? What was I wrong about? How am I stupid on my opinion? You tell me what you think I'm wrong about. I'll see y'all in the next one.